where they have traced their signs. And since we did not understand our dead, since we have never listened to their cries, if and when we weep gently, gently, if and when we cry roughly of our torments, what heart will listen to our clamoring, what ear to our sobbing hearts? So we pour and we speak libation as an act of remembrance, respect, recognition, reverence, renewal, return, reawakening, and restoration. Indeed, as acts of retribution and revolution, for we live in a society and we live at a time when forgetting is the wish and denying the relevance, the power, the mattering of African and Black humanity is the norm. Sadly, even for far too many of us. So we pour and we speak libation as our own personal and collective quest for our own self-reparation, because repairing the African spirit starts with the pouring, the speaking, the living of libation. That is its purpose. We are instructed by our ancient ancestors in the book of Ani to pour libation for our fathers and mothers who rest in the valley of the dead. We must not forget to do this even when we have been torn away from home, for as we do for our parents or not, our children will do also for us or not. We pour and we speak libation for the indomitable fighting spirit we seek to resurrect, that we may continue our pursuit of Black life, that is liberation, independence, freedom, empowerment. We dare call it justice for our ancestors and our children's future. And we pour and we speak libation in honor of those ancestors who left us a legacy worthy of honor. We pour and we speak for those who have contributed to our lives in ways we know and appreciate, and in the countless ways we have yet to understand, and in many ways we may never even know. We pour and we speak for the mother father of civilization, the nation builders, the concept creators, the freedom fighters, the warriors, the educators, those who escaped and those who stayed, those who fought and those who hid, those that roared and those that cried, those who held it down so that we may be lifted up, those who held us together so we could stand on our own. We pour and we speak for those whose struggles lay the foundation for the world's greatest diaspora, which will be great once again when we remember to love ourselves. We pour and we speak for those who have poured into us, filling us with the instincts, the insight, the intuition, the intelligence, the instruction that guide us forward, and that we will pass on to the beautiful ones not yet born. And we pour, we speak, and we live for the beautiful children not yet born, hoping that our living, our contribution to their future will one day be worthy of remembrance, respect, recognition, and reverence. And since we have your ear and we have your presence, we ask for African power, power to heal, overcome, become whole and exemplary and sovereign. Once again, Ashe, Aluta Continua, Uhuru Sasa, Black Power, Ubuntu, I am we. And we are one. So let the healing begin. Let our healing continue.
Greetings. Good afternoon, and welcome to Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. This continues a day-long, for me at least, a day-long exploration of conversations. I had the privilege of sitting in this morning on Wake Up with WURD for good brother Solomon Jones. He'll be back with us next week. Had a chance to explore issues of environmental racism and environmental justice with my brother Butch Slaughter. We talked about reflections on the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March, which is today, 25 years ago, October 16th. We talked about and gave an update on the city of Philadelphia's apology coming from city council regarding MOVE, and encouraging everybody to weigh in with your city council people to really light some fire under them and to make sure that they create as transparent a process as possible. We had a segment of pretty much totally run by some young people, some young adults that I had the privilege of building and working with. I called it Future Visions. Wanted to hear their ideas around whether the vote was still rocking. You know, there's a big Rock the Vote campaign a few years back, and wanted to hear from them whether the idea of the vote was still rocking for them. And then also there are reflections on Black futures in the context of COVID and rioting and all that's going on in and around the world right now. So today now, as we continue our conversation, we're going to focus, and I'm going to jump right in on the conversation around domestic violence in light of October being designated as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we've had this conversation in many ways before. It's a vast conversation, never enough time to do it. But I want a particular lens today before I invite my guest to weigh in. And I really want to talk about this from the perspective as a child who grew up in a home that was impacted by domestic violence on a quite regular basis. And, you know, I turned 55 last week, I believe it was, maybe 10 days ago. And I talk about a lot how even today as a 55-year-old man, those memories, those emotions, those whatever experiences impact and have impacted my decision-making for better and for worse sometimes. There are things I've sought in way of help that I think have helped me now. There are things that still bother me and impact me in negative ways. So I really want to begin to talk about domestic violence and domestic violence awareness. But one of the things that really struck me as a little boy growing up in a home around domestic violence is this resentment that I had because I knew that other people knew what was going on, but I felt like nobody really had the courage or the value for me or us to intervene. And so the conversation I really want to have is one thing to talk about domestic violence awareness, but what does domestic violence activation or domestic violence activism or domestic violence intervention need to look like? How do we as a community, we know we have specialists who do this work, but how do we as a community get to the point of saying zero tolerance for domestic violence in our communities, in our families, in our village? And how do we begin to have intervention plans at a community, family, village level to really address domestic violence once we are aware of it? So I'm pleased to be joined by three esteemed colleagues, if you will, three esteemed professionals in the field in some way: Brother Rob Carter, Reverend Dr. Helena Fontes, and Sister Teresa White. Teresa's with WURD, Helena's with New View Institute, and Brother Rob, I forget the name of your organization. I'm sure you're going to clarify it for us when we get to you. So I want to start out in that context with each of you briefly introducing yourself and your lens on the issue of domestic violence, but then also some reflections on, and we'll delve deeper when we come back from commercial break, but really from the lens of children or other people who are growing up in that environment who might not directly receive the violence, but they see it. They're living it vicariously. They're living it from their own lived experience, and how that also gets carried forward. And I don't think we talk enough about that. I don't think we talk about enough that I would venture to wager that a lot of the brothers right now and individuals who are engaged in, quote unquote, the violence that we see in our communities, gun violence, black on black crime, things of that nature, probably had a high level of toxicity and violence in their homes that they experienced as a child, be it language, be it emotional violence, be it physical violence. And I don't think we correlate that early exposure to in-home domestic violence to some of the community violence we end up seeing later on. So that's the lens I want to take on the conversation today. And I just want you all to briefly introduce yourselves, and when we come back from commercial break, we'll dive right in. So let's start with you, Teresa.
Thank you, Eric. Brother Shamari, for having me to be a part of this discussion. Is something in the work that I do is near and dear to my heart. I am Teresa White. I'm the Director of Education and Training at WURD, Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. And I've done the work of community association around violence prevention for 20 years now, and so I'll be coming with that lens. I work with preschool through professional level, and so it does give me a lens on what's happening, especially in our Philadelphia community.
Thank you. Helena, Reverend Doctor. You might have to unmute yourself to be heard. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think that first of all, I'm Helena Fontes. I did my doctoral work on domestic violence as it relates to the church's response to families who are experiencing domestic violence. What I've noticed is that the biggest problem is privacy, and we can talk about that as we move forward in the conversation. But I provide counseling services for victims, survivors, and perpetrators of domestic violence. I've had experiences in all of those realms, unfortunately, but I am here to serve and to help others to recover. It's a lifelong journey. It doesn't just, you don't just walk away from it and then, it's over. You continue to experience remnants of it within your life, within your psyche. It remains, and it does dictate how you function in the world and how you function in relationships. Mm-hmm. And so we help individuals to walk their road of recovery with their heads held high, and to try to help them to rid themselves of the trauma and the shame that has been associated with it.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Brother Rob Carter.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure meeting the two sisters that came before me. My name is Brother Rob Carter. Presently, I'm co-director of the Men's Center for Growth and Change, and we primarily work with men. We do work with some women around the issues of anger management, and particularly for domestic abuse counseling. We've been in existence for over 41 years. I've been working primarily with perpetrators for at least the past 27 years, starting in the mid-90s. The piece around witnessing and experiencing, years ago, I was involved in a research project. And what we found out, 80% of the men who had graduated from then reduced abuse program, which now morphed into Menergy, men who came in, did intake and stuff like that and graduated, 80% of them were men who came from a home where they experienced domestic violence. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes I have sit in a circle with a number of men, and let's say maybe out of the 10 men, you might have 3 of the men who've actually had a lived experience of witnessing and hearing. One guy, I remember him talking vividly about never seeing it, but sleeping in the bed next door and hearing his parents argue and hearing his mother in particularly crying, and just how that kind of like shaped him. And some of them said how they hated hearing that and then wind up doing some similar things. So
real quick,
stop there. But
real quickly, before we go to commercial break, if each of you can say your organization name again and give people the best way to contact your organization. Real quickly, start with you, Brother Rob.
Okay, the Men's Center for Growth and Change, 215-564-0488. And we're on the web. That's the Men's Center for Growth and Change.
Helena?
The New View Institute, newviewinstitute.org. And our phone number is 267-252-1470.
And I'm asking each of you to go on mute when you're not speaking, but also to remember to unmute yourself when you are. And Teresa?
WURD Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence, 215-985-3333. You can go to the web at WOAR.org.
And again, I'm Brother Shamari. This is Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations. And we're going to take our first hour and focus on domestic violence awareness, but awareness and beyond. How do we get to the point of intervention, activation, prevention, and things of that nature? Because I believe that a lot of the community violence that we're experiencing begins, the seeds of that germinate in how young people experience value, worth, and relationship in their homes. And also the message that it sends when people know that someone is being victimized or abused in a home setting and the community around them never responds. What does it say for that young person about how they value their community and their place in the community when they grow up resenting their next door neighbor or their cousins or their brothers for never intervening in an experience that we know that everybody was aware of? So this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and our push is to move beyond awareness. And awareness is necessary, but what do we do and should we do and be held accountable to doing once we become aware? That's what we're going to explore with Brother Rob, Reverend Dr. Helena, and Sister Teresa after these messages.
At PICO, We know one thing is certain. Times have changed. From kitchen classrooms to couch conference calls, searching for a new job, or new ways to keep your family connected. These changes have become a part of our reality. That's why our teams are working 24/7 to meet the needs of our communities. So no matter how much things change, you can depend on PECO to be there with the energy and help you need to power through. Learn more at PECO.com.
JD's Auto Body and Painting is hiring talent for the following positions. Assembler, preferably 2 to 3 years experience, able to tear down and reassemble all make and model cars. Painter, must have at least 5 years overall painting experience, including experience in water-based paint and able to prep cars for paint jobs. Auto Body Technician, looking for an A or B technician, must have at least 5 years experience repairing cars. Please send your resume to JD's Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net. That's JDS Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net or call 215-848-5949 for more details. JD's Auto Body and Painting is an equal opportunity employer.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend, we created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
The people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear, this election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We'll protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, root out systemic racism in our justice system, and pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings with Brother Shamari. And today we're doing an introspective look into the issue of domestic violence. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And our question right now is to how do we move beyond awareness? I have a fundamental premise that there's some ground level things that we as Black people could handle right now if we want to address the issue of violence in its totality in our community. And I'm not saying these two things will eliminate violence. I am saying these are two things that we could intervene as a community under our own terms right now. One of them is what we allow ourselves and particularly our children to ingest by way of media at such a young age. I believe if we were more vigilant and diligent about that, coupled with the fact of how we intervened in abusive, violent interactions, both verbally, physically, emotionally in the households. Not how the children intervene, but how people as a community, as family intervene on behalf in that household. I believe if we had a clear set of protocols around those two things, we'd address the issue of violence in our community at a significant level. Not totally eradicating it, because I know that there are other issues, but I believe that that early mindset that's impacted by the way we tolerate violence and normalize violence, and our young people vicariously see us tolerate and normalize it, I believe that feeds later actions as people get older about how violence is used as a useful tool to solve quote unquote issues and problems. So I want to begin to explore that. How do we move beyond awareness and get to intervention, activation, prevention, and other things? So before we left, I'd said when we come back, I want to jump right in. So I'm going to start with you, Reverend Helena Fontes. How do we begin to make intervening and acting on the domestic violence that we know about part of our community norm and expectation?
Well, it's a really good question, Shamari. One of the things that we have to get away from is this whole idea of privacy. You know, what happens in my home stays in my home. We rear our children with that same philosophy. And, you know, how can a community intervene on something that no one wants to talk about? There is shame that is associated with domestic violence. And as such, people don't want to say that they are being humiliated, coerced, manipulated, beaten, tormented even by their intimate partner. Who wants to say that? No one. And so that makes it very difficult for a victim of violence to get help from her community. Secondly, we have to recognize the fact that there is great lethality associated with domestic violence. It's lethal. In fact, tomorrow we will be having a Remember My Name ceremony to honor those victims of homicide as it relates to domestic violence. People die as a result of domestic violence. Neighbors don't want to get involved with that. Family members don't even want to get involved with that. And oftentimes the victim is apprehensive about sharing this encounter with her family member and or friends because of the fear of her lover, her husband, her boyfriend getting killed, getting hurt. You know, she's living in this horrible situation, but yet she still wants to protect him. Why? Because she loves him. She loves him. She, however, hates the abuse. And so when we're dealing with the fact that there's great privacy in the family unit, there's great shame in exposing this experience to others, and the lethality that is associated with it, it makes it very difficult to be able to get in, jump in, and save the victim. However, you're right. We can't ignore what's going on as a community. And so there are ways that neighbors can intervene, not going knocking on the door, because these days a shotgun can be on the other end of it and you can end up dead as a result of trying to save someone else's life. But you can surely be aware of the coming and going of the victim and try to, talk with them with love and without judgment. Judgment is another reason why people don't want to let their business out in the street. And again, we talked about shame, but you can gently, with love and compassion and empathy, go to a person and say, I hear some arguing going on. Is there anything that I can do to help? Or hand her some resources, her or him, because we know that victims can be male or female, but we know if we go and approach them gently with respect to be able to share some resources, then they're more apt to be able to get the help that they need.
Great, appreciate that. Thanks for the insights. Let's go to Brother Rob, your thoughts. I need you to unmute.
I have a lot of thoughts about it. And also feeling kind of challenged in a sense, because I've primarily been working with the perpetrators of domestic violence, and I've been trained and also wait for them to at least admit that they have a problem that they want to settle. Sometimes that's court mandated, meaning they got in trouble, so they've come to see me. So my end has been in the clinical setting, but your question is more centered around community, and I do not want to go away from that question. And I believe when we ask guys to partner up when they come to group with each other, it is my hope that they're able to carry some of this information with them. In terms of doing community education and going to high schools and junior high schools and talking about this, invariably I see some eyes in the audience, particularly in my opinion, women who have been victimized. And I can see some of their hurt, and sometimes they'll ask certain kinds of questions. Usually the guys posture around if they're being involved in situations like that, and I believe they need to be shown first a sense that you have a connection to them, and you've heard this before, some kind of connection to them, some kind of affection to them, meaning not coming at hard, and then some kind of redirection. I was on the L once. On the L, two young brothers were sitting down talking. And one young brother said, wow, man, I had to go upside my girl's head last night. And I was listening. I was like, okay, say something that could be helpful to this guy. I was saying this to the other guy. And the other guy just said, well, you know what? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And they got up, and I was like, damn, I should have said something. Why didn't I say something? I just let them walk by, and I heard their conversation. And so I was also in that trap or that concept the Reverend talked about, this individualism idea, like what goes on in our space. I do believe we tolerate a tremendous amount of toxicity in our community. So I believe to combat that, we have to really look at what does it mean to be human and how we're relating to one another. And how, if we're being human, there's a humanism that needs to be seen each and every day. I think we slip down that slope when we allow cursing, screaming, dirt, trash, filth, incompetencies. All that gets collected in, and I think it regurgitates its way out sometimes to physical violence, not even just the domestic. I mean, just think about it. You're home. You're actually home, and you're terrorized. You know, so of course that gets in somebody's very pores. So I think the community part is important. When I was trained with the Duluth model, Duluth was kind of praised in the 70s because they took this community intervention approach, where women would kind of go to another woman's door and provide safety. That was in the 70s. I don't know if you could replicate that, but we do need some discussions around people coming together to help one another who are in harm's way.
Thank you for that. And Teresa, your thoughts on it?
Well, I believe Dr. Fontes and Brother Rob have said it so succinctly. There's a lot going on here, and you can't unpack it just with one or two solutions. As you know, you stated initially, one of the things that comes to my mind is the amount of exposure to violence on the television and through our media access and through the games that we let our, young people, children view. And years ago, when I started this work almost 20 years ago, I can remember a statistic that said by the time a child enters into elementary school, they've seen about 8,000 murders. And so somehow the culture of not speaking up or speaking against something that is harmful to the developing mind of a child, we don't address that. And for people, especially in our community, that speak up, there's always a pushback. And, and not from everyone, but just being upfront, because when you're in schools and we do boots on the ground work, the work that I've done, I've been in schools, in community for 20 years now, working with young people. And I look at when we start talking about things like bullying, and I hear, well, children will be children. To me, bullying unchecked only escalates up the food chain and ends up into some of these relationship violence situations. I do believe Brother Rob said it, it's the fact that we don't check violence. And so domestic violence for me is just one aspect. If I don't know how to treat my neighbor with love, guard, care, and respect, I'm going to mistreat them. And if no one intervenes, I think that is normal. And so to hear young men think that violence is the solution to deal with another human being, for me, relationships around domestic violence, I choose to say family violence, interpersonal violence, it's not just between the two people in a relationship. It's about how I treat the people around me in my circle. So as a community, yeah, we do need to speak up and intervene, but I'm also a big person into prevention. I know that in a lot of the relationships that I've had to do some crisis work in, people are trained today, or they're acclimated today in our hookup culture, especially with our young people. They don't even know who the individual is. They meet a person, the relationship develops rapidly, romantically, their young woman's heart is caught, And then often the young lady ends up in, and young men, in relationships with individuals they barely know anything about. And so talking with children, adolescent, and youth, this is one of those things that I really push. Young men, young women, I push, because I want people to take time to know the persons that they're engaged with, involved with. I always say to young people, my great-grandmother had a saying, if you tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. And so that concept of my boyfriend or my girlfriend, they're really nice, they don't do that, but their friends are having those kind of conversations, it really kind of tells you, you know, I love that person, I want to be with that person, but I'm not really examining what that person is or the kinds of things that person brings. And it doesn't mean that that individual is bad. It just simply means that they have not been given a healthy way to have a normal relationship or to have a conversation. So, you know, very quickly, those are my thoughts about that, Brother Shamari.
So what I want to do, it's going to sound like the same question, but I want to put a different lens on it that I want us to grapple with. And the question is, I want to know how much you all in your work directly deal with this lens that I'm about to lay out. This is Black Talk Media, so I'm going to get black on this. Because I think we use words like toxicity and violence, and violence being normalized, but I think we don't take it where it really needs to be centered, in my opinion. And that is, what is really normalized is that the Black body, since it's been brought here to America, has been the symbol of suffering and trauma and pain and violence. So the idea that our bodies, I don't care whether it's our young people and the conversations we have around child abuse and whip them, and this idea that whipping is the way to bring forward development and discipline, you know, whether it's female bodies and this idea that they can be sexually violated or slapped around, like Rob says, the words, you know, I had to touch her, you know, words like that flow freely from people's mouth. Even black on black male crime, you know, this idea that the Black male body is to be victimized, is to be hurt or killed. Like, how much does not just violence or toxicity or normalization, but the normalization of the Black body as a recipient of pain and trauma play in all the forms of violence, domestic violence that we're talking about? And how much do we actually talk about that when we're doing our work with our clients? Really putting a racial lens on the fact that we live in a culture that has been acclimated to the fact that the Black body, be it male, be it female, be it young, be it old, is designed to receive pain. And until we deal with that psychology, and I think that psychology comes in our homes when that's normalized, when we see children who get beat and it is not supposed to mean anything. We see women who get beat. We see men sometimes who get beat. When we look at television and Black bodies are suffering and getting beaten on the television, both in a contemporary sense, but also if you go back to 1619, historical legacy, even when you look at the civil rights movement, what you see is Black bodies being beaten. And somehow that becomes an accepted meme, an accepted image for what the Black body is supposed to endure. How much, number one, what credence do you give to what I just laid out? And how much do you all in your work, in your counseling, in your education and training, in your support group work, really hone in on trying to break this cycle of acceptance that Black people are supposed to receive and endure pain? We're talking about domestic violence awareness and attempt to move beyond awareness. I'm Eric Keith Grimes, Brother Shamari. This is Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. So we're going to try to ground, evolve, and elevate this conversation right after these messages.
2020 is the year of voter options. We have many different ways to exercise one of the most important activities in our lifetime. Some of us might be voting by mail, but the rest of us can still vote safely while masked up and social distancing in person at your local polling locations. If you're in Philadelphia, learn more about where your polling location might be at either votespa.com or philadelphiavotes.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. WURDradio.com.
Everyone has a different journey to their vote, but we all take the same steps. If you want to vote, register by October 19th. If you want to vote by mail, apply now and mail your ballot back as early as possible, before November 3rd. Or bring it to a satellite election office. If you want to vote in person, go to your polling location on November 3rd. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way. Visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com.
Reverend Tyler, with November 3rd around the corner, do you know how you'll be voting this year?
Dr. Callahan, I requested my mail-in ballot, and I'm returning it the day it comes in the mail.
That's perfect, because we can't leave anything to chance this year.
Already received your mail-in ballot? You're just a few simple steps away from turning your mailbox into a ballot box. Here's how. After selecting your candidates, place your marked ballot into the small secrecy envelope and seal it. It's a 2-envelope process, so then you'll place the small secrecy envelope into the larger one. Make sure to seal that one too. Sign and date it, and then it's as simple as dropping it in your mailbox, no postage necessary, or returning it to your county election office. And if you still want to sign up to vote by mail or find out where to drop off your mail-in ballot, visit votespa.com.
I'm not waiting until November 3rd. I'm returning my mail-in ballot the day it comes in the mail.
Or you can return your ballot to your county election office.
I've got my plan. Make your plan to vote today.
Paid for by Power Interfaith.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings with Brother Shamari. I asked a pretty in-depth question before we went to commercial break. I want each of our panelists to have a chance to answer it. But before we do, I want to go to our caller, Brother Sampson, real quick for comments before we return to our panelists.
Hey, good afternoon, Brother Shamari.
How you doing?
Brother Shamari, all right. You know, I watched a conversation between teenagers less than an hour ago, closely related to this, where something was on the TV, and in this story, you know, the man was what I call overly assertive. And in the story, in the script, she finally became submissive and even later began to, you know, engage with this person. But, you know, they brought up. They understood that he never should have got to yes because no came first. You know what I mean? And, you know, it was remarkable. It's like nobody had to say anything. All you do is watch this conversation because they already knew. And I think that also speaks to, like, how people can underestimate social service caregivers, how people can underestimate some of our families, because these were youth in trouble. But they knew what was going on themselves. The script didn't fool them. The fact that she became submissive and became receptive didn't matter because they understood that he never should have found out.
Right. There was a violation.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you calling your insights on that. And I think that it's a function of the fact that if we teach, the behaviors that we see are a function of conditioning and socialization and teaching. And I think that we need to become more proactive about what we're teaching and what we're normalizing. And that's why we're having this conversation. Like, we really have some levers and some power right in our hands if we become intentional about monitoring the messages and the images that we're allowing our people and our young people to ingest, and also intervening in developmental ways when the opportunity is there. And I think that one of the places we can be intentional is within our household. If we fix the toxicity within the household, then it's going to be fixed within the village, within the community, and that's what our call is for. Thank you, Brother Sampson, for that. Let's go to Brother Rob. I said I was going to start with you, sir. I really want to get to this. How do we begin to deal with the normalization of the Black body as a recipient of pain and trauma, and how do we break that cycle? Because I believe that acceptance bleeds into literally all of the other forms of violence that we end up talking about. Brother Rod.
Well, for me, one of the things that's important is that I view, and I use the racial lens constantly. I also use the cultural lens. You started off the program with libations, and you made a statement that was very familiar to me. You said there's medicine in our culture, you know, and the flip side of that, there's this is a very savage society. And years ago, there was a film, a documentary by Dr. Alvin Poussaint called Violence, an American Tradition. I think we underestimate our inculcation of violence, and the victimization of Black people been going on for quite a few centuries. And that victimization has crossed every field: medicine, law, schooling, particularly education. So yes, I think using a racial lens is important, but it's also important in examining the culture that we sit in, which allows a tremendous amount of violence, and particularly racial violence. You know, you got. I look at the country as also being an entity. So this country was born, birthing, and trying its best to eradicate a whole group of people that we now call indigenous Native Americans. You and I, brother, teach a class together where we're talking and having students look at dehumanization. I think is a very, and we oftentimes look at the person who's being dehumanized. And I'm saying the perpetrator is violent. There's a dehumanization, there's a loss of humanity that goes there that we've been allowed to happen for many, many years in this culture. The fact that we witness and take in so much violence like it's natural. I think the racial lens for me is important, and it comes up a lot in our groups, and we don't have all Black groups. It's interesting sitting around with men who've decided to do some work around the perpetrating of violence against women, having a mixed group, and oftentimes having the Black guys tell some of their stories in the presence of the white guys, and realize that oftentimes the ones who are court mandated, who are Black, got to that state because they were arrested. Some of the same situations happened in the white communities, but they didn't get arrested. And it becomes to be kind of like a revelation for them. But this is a violent culture.
Rob, what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I need you to share your contact information because I want to make sure that Helena and Teresa get some time to weigh in before we close.
Okay. Brother Rob Carter at the Men's Center for Growth and Change, 215-564-0488.
Teresa, how often does the normalization of violence perpetuated against the Black body come up in WURD's approach to education, training, counseling, and things of that nature?
I know I definitely speak to the education and training because I oversee that work. And for me, it's ingrained in when I'm trying to stop young people from, being violent towards each other. In Philadelphia, we're dealing with a population that is, in many cases, in many schools, predominantly African American. And when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind is we actually use Eye on the Prize, which is a PBS documentary years ago. I love it. And the reason I use that is because I want young people to see what it took for them to get a free education and the value that people had on education and the violence that they experienced to get that education. So by showing that, it shows young people that maybe the culture that they see now in media where more times than not, you're seeing black on black violence, gang banging, and all that kind of stuff. That has become a normal, and our young people don't even often understand what it took to get from where we were to where we are now. So it is very prevalent in the work that I do, because I'm trying to dismantle a mindset so that it doesn't continue to perpetuate the future in our young people. I often, you want to help adults who are experiencing family violence, domestic violence, and everything that is said, we say it. But for me, one of the tools is trying to help, especially young women and young men, become independent, self-sufficient financially, giving a future ahead of themselves so they can put their lives in a situation where they can make some better choices for themselves. And, God have mercy if you end up with someone who is violent. You have a little better resource when you have your own job, your own education to move forward. Often what we see are a lot of individuals, young women particularly, who are codependent financially or dependent financially on someone to pay their bills. And in some cases, we have experienced the work that I've done, the crisis work, young men who intentionally targeted females because they knew they had some kind of resource. So they're setting that young woman up, and is it a terrible thing? Absolutely. But I have to ask, where did that mindset come from? So I'm doing everything I know how to do and some to redirect how our young people think so that they're not living lives of violence, because being violent should not be a normal for Black families.
So how do people reach out to WURD and your services to follow up?
215-985-3333 is the hotline. If they want continued programming, they just go on the website and fill it out for a program. We are actually setting up where individuals can now access us to get some additional training, additional education. So that'll drop in a few weeks, but we're moving forward to try to build Philadelphia in a better community and safe for everybody. Thank you.
Great to hear. I know we're going to struggle through this a little bit more, and I really want us to begin to grapple as a people with when our spiritual systems really begin to talk about the role of suffering as righteous. Then we have our civil rights movement, our racial justice movements, all centered around the Black body suffering as a path forward to progress. Then we have crime, and violence is key to capitalism. We're normalizing at very high levels this idea of the body receiving pain. I want us to begin to interrogate that moving forward. So this is just the beginning of that exploration. Reverend Helena, you get to close us out on this segment. Don't forget to unmute.
I think it's a really good subject to grapple with and sit and really think about how we, as Teresa said, dismantle the mindset. Individuals need to, first of all, recognize that domestic violence is about power and control. And so as we receive victim survivors of domestic violence and other such violent crimes into our program, we help them to understand the value that should be associated with their body and with their humanness. Part of what has happened to our culture is that we were beaten for so long. We were whipped for so long, and that surely did transfer in our DNA. And so for many generations back, we were whipped, we were punished. And the way that we were punished was we were beat with a belt or a switch or whatever, a lot of that violence continued throughout the generations. It's not until recently that we have begun to look at other ways in which to discipline our children. Many still are not on board with that. And so therefore, many are still whipping their children, still beating their children, still acting out and perpetuating violence on their children. And so what we have to do as a community, as a village, is we have to get on the same page. Over the weekend, I had my granddaughters, and there were times that we had to have conversations. We had to have some real serious conversations. And I really grappled with this whole idea of, how do I discipline these kids? I have to be able to institute some type of appropriate behavior and help them to understand what that looks like. And how do I do that? Well, I know I can't whip them. I know I can't beat them. I know I can't do any of those things, nor would I want to. But I was able to be really creative, and it really allowed some thought-provoking exercises and reflection for me that I could share with their parents, you know, so that if we can all be on the same page and nobody whips, nobody beats, but yet and still we can find some healthier ways in which to communicate that they, number one, have the capacity to learn other ways to engage with one another, to be able to resolve conflict. I think that part of the biggest problem is that people don't know how to resolve conflict. They get angry with one another, they harbor their anger, and it manifests and becomes rageful. And so if we can help individuals know, number one, you can look at power and control and recognize you have the capacity to control your anger, your rage, your feeling of how you value yourself and those that you engage in relationship with. And also, you do have the power to live in peace and safety. So we have to transform their mindset from thinking that in order to have the upper hand over someone, you have to beat, you have to verbally abuse and put down. We have to change the way that we engage with one another. And again, like we've all agreed at this point, it begins within the home.
And so on that note, if people want to reach out to the New View Institute and stay connected.
Look, we say it every time. It's our slogan. It's part of our motto: be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind and the healing of your soul. You can reach us, newviewinstitute.org, or you can call 267-252-1470.
Reverend Dr. Helena, Sister Teresa, Brother Rob Carter, thank you for joining us in our exploration of domestic violence, moving beyond awareness to intervention, actualization, activation, prevention, and all of those things that we need to do as a community. Thank you for joining us here on Groundings with Brother Shamari. Coming up on the commercial break. When we come back, jump to the phone lines real quick, and then we'll transfer over to our No More 0% conversation with Mama Gail and Baba Horace Clouden. So stay tuned.
Have you heard about Penny? They make it easier than ever to get health coverage.
What if I'm self-employed?
Penny gets you covered.
Unemployed?
Penny gets you covered.
What about my family?
Penny gets them covered too.
But will this fit into my budget?
Penny can connect you to financial help to lower the cost.
Really? Where do I go?
Easy. Just go to PENNIE.com or call 1-844-844-8040.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you sick of trying to cut and style your own hair and the rest of your family? Well, McLean's Unisex Salon in Mount Airy is open for business. We've been a neighborhood institution for more than 50 years with styles for men, women, and kids. We have new partitions and social distancing measures to keep everyone safe while keeping the welcoming feel you've come to expect from your neighborhood shop. Visit us online at mcleansunisex.com or call now to make an appointment, 215-844-9826.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear, this election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We'll protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, root out systemic racism in our justice system, and pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. the new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Groundings with Brother Shamari on WURD Radio, on WURDradio.com. We're having we just wrapped up beginning exploration around domestic violence awareness and how we begin to, as a community, as family units, as a village, move beyond awareness into prevention, into activation, into intervention. Now we're moving to our No More 0% segment, but before we do, I wanted to jump back to the phone lines and take Spread Love. Greetings, good afternoon. Spread Love, are you there?
Are you talking to us, Shamari?
Not yet, sir. I'm going to Spread Love on line 2 if he's still there. If not, then I'm going to come to you all. So, Mike, let me know.
This is Mama Gail Horace. Is he talking now?
Not yet. Okay, let's go to Mama Gail. Baba Harris, Spread Love, hung up on it. So, greetings. Welcome to Groundings in our normal segment we call No More 0%. And as a reminder, No More 0% is a movement that stems from the fact that there's an inordinate number of schools under the auspices of the school district of Philadelphia, particularly high schools, that are operating at the level of SPR student achievement at the level of 0%. And at some point, we as a community have to say no more to the systematic, intentional miseducation, undereducation, and what I call de-education of Black children around our city, because it's handicapped them to be adequate or to be prepared to compete with their peer group in the future. And we have a future already where the rules of engagement are changing exponentially. And we have young people who are being made virtually functionally illiterate and unable to compete in the world that's evolving in front of them. And we as Black people are not creating that world for them. So it's time for us to say no more 0%. And yes to 100% of whatever we define as necessary for our children to understand and to know in order to compete and to win in the world and to create the world that they need to create. So Mama Gail and Baba Harris have been with us, I guess, going on 2 to 3 months now, really laying the groundwork for why we need to change the game of education in and around the city of Philadelphia. So greetings, good afternoon, and welcome to Groundings. I'm going to hand it over to both of you. We usually start with Baba Harris, who gives us some groundwork and some pertinent information that we need to be aware of. So it's over to you, Baba Harris.
Hey.
Peace and love.
Yeah, peace and love. Okay, peace and love, audience. I want to start off by reminding the audience that next Thursday is going to be another school board action meeting. This meeting is on Thursday, October 22nd at 5 o'clock, and you can get on the school district's website, philasdp.org, or via channel 20. But what I like for some of you to do in your spare time is go to the school board website and look up one of your previous board meetings, especially the last one, October 8th. And this way you can see your tax dollars in action. Now, we talk about 0%. And what I like to do again is read to you what we're talking, the platform is student achievement. And the definition of student achievement is reading on grade level, proficiency in English, language, arts, and math. Now, the school district, they've been advertising, we want the children to be able to read by the 3rd grade. Yeah, that's fine, but what about 4 through 12? You know, here again, we have 24 schools, 24 high schools that are at 0%. So 0% in student achievement. So what grade level are they reading on? You know, right now there's an assessment going on with the board that's supposed to be finished by October 23rd. And that assessment is going to be in English and math. And I can't wait to see what the outcomes are for that and to share it with you. Now, just to recap, they had an October 8th meeting, and a few things that was discussed on the October 8th meeting. One was student attendance. Now, with student attendance, they said it was 90% of the students through K-8 that attended the first 2 weeks. They also said it was 90% of the students that attended that was from 9 to 12. That's on your virtual. Now, we always advocated that they need to start specifying what the teacher's attendance is, because here the data shows that the teachers in the past had poor attendance. So again, we like, if anybody knows anybody in the school board or the Board of Education that their first presentation, they neglected to specify the teacher's attendance. The second thing that came up, or one of the other things that came up, was building readiness. Now, they seem to be stuck on building ventilation certification, which means that the district has explained it to be somebody that's going to come in and give an air balancing test and then relay that information to the board. And then I guess the board is going to one day is going to say, well, okay, these buildings are ready to be open. But my suggestion to the board is they need to have the school district demonstrate the airflow patterns in those rooms, as opposed to just somebody saying that you can have maybe 5 to 10 children in a room, because they need to understand you have positive pressure and negative pressure going in and out of rooms that'll be tying into positive and negative pressure in these hallways. And then if you need outside air to balance everything out, now you're opening up doors to schools, which creates another safety factor. And plus, since we're going into the winter months, now how is heating the building going to factor into that air balancing? So it's a lot more than just somebody coming up to the school board or the school district telling the school board, yes, we had an air balancing test done, and the air balancer said, well, 8 people can be in this room. And then plus, to add on to that, the school board, I don't know if they remember, but we gave them a report on how many schools that were overcrowded. And just one to mention is your Central High School. You know, they had at one time 500 children that was over occupancy. So what are they going to do when you have a couple of schools, it was basically up to 10, that were overcrowded? What are you going to do with that? Now, I'd just like to end with this and then pass the mic over. It was one thing that came up in the last meeting about how many students that still weren't registered in the school district. And one of the board members was, paraphrasing what she said, that number has me panicked. Where is the urgency with these students? Now, they were talking about the 2,500 students that seems the school district doesn't know where they are right now. But my thing is this. You have 15,000 students that represent the 0% school. Where is the urgency for these students? You know, you have no plan for these students. You just keep coming up saying, well, COVID, we're making the buildings safe, and we want everybody to go back into these buildings. But yet, when it comes to the student achievement part, which the Board of Ed at one time at their meeting said, well, we're really going to focus on student achievement. Where is the focus on student achievement? Where is the urgency for these 24 schools representing 15,000 students? And we're talking high school students that graduate, that go into this society, that we're having problems with poverty and gun violence and everything else. You know, where's the urgency for these students?
So before you hand off the mic, Brother Horace, to Mama Miguel, I want to ask our listening audience a question, because I really would like people to weigh in. Please go to our Facebook line. at WURD Radio. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, type into the comment section. If you want to call up to the radio station, the number would be 215-634-8065. Again, that number is 215-634-8065, because I'm going to declare a frustration that I have. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and the answers will prove it. My frustration is that sometimes, and we've been doing this report every week for the last going on 3 months or so. And we've also done some community activations along this. I want to ask each of you, because you all go to the meetings regularly and you all are around this for a long time. If you all weren't doing what you're doing and we weren't having this conversation on a regular basis on WURD Radio, what would the state of Black people intervening regarding public education on behalf of Black children be in the city of Philadelphia? Because I don't know where the other dissenting voices are in an organized way. I know that there are individuals, and many of us are fed up with the information, but I don't know where Black people are organizing on behalf of the Black interests of Black students in this school district. So I'm wondering, if you all weren't doing this and you all weren't going regularly to the school board meetings, what organizations are out there that you could point to that are organized, not individuals, but organized movements that have really taken up this charge to address the Black de-education that's going on in the city of Philadelphia? And it's a call for you all to answer that as well. I want to hear people type it in on Facebook Live on the comment section. Call up and let us know at 215-634-8065, because it's kind of frustrating that this is such a massive issue, and yet it feels like if certain individuals don't take up the burden, we as a Black community in Philadelphia would let our children continue to have way more 0% than they've had at this point. So I'm just curious as to who are the other people taking up this cause on behalf of our children in the city of Philadelphia. Mama Gail.
Peace, peace, peace. Blessings, yes.
Thank you. No, I was just wondering, number one, your normal, I want you to say what you normally would say or what you were prepared to say, but also if you have any thoughts about the question that I just asked.
Oh, what group could I point at?
Yeah, specifically that are dealing with it from a Black frame of reference. I mean, I know we have other groups out there. I know that we have other people, and some people would name other names that have been on the forefront of quote unquote education reform. But I want to know what Black group has taken up the battle or the mantle on behalf of Black children to address the de-education of the public school system right now.
I can't name one, and I'm being very, very honest with you. I've been sitting for years. I can't name one group. There was parent groups that would jump in and out, but I can't name one group now that's basically about Black children. The focus has switched for many people to Black and brown children. But as far as Black children specifically, there's no group. And as far as Black and brown, I believe the group that I would mention would be more educators and parent group connected. And I think that we have to create a community group and that's why it was important, not just parents, but a community group that specifically speaks on behalf of Black children, because everybody's going to benefit when Black children get what they're supposed to get. But I don't know of anyone.
All right, and again, I ask our listening audience, weigh in on Facebook Live. I mean, we're up and running. I go to the comment section. I could be wrong. My hypothesis was that there weren't any either, but you might know of some. And again, not individuals. I know that we have individuals. Y'all talk to me all the time when y'all see me out in the streets. Y'all want me to come by and talk to you, and you want to talk to me. I want to know what group, what organization, what entity has taken on this crusade on behalf of Black children to say that this is ridiculous. You're miseducating, undereducating us virtually. You're doing it while we're in person in school. Our schools have asbestos and lead. Our children are not learning. Like, I can't understand how we sit idly by and tolerate the systematic social engineering of our children into irrelevance. And that is really what we are allowing to happen on our watch. And I think it's one of the most egregious things to happen. And I think also because people listen to this conversation, they think that listening to you all come on every week and do all the research and the work that you're doing, and listening to you all and saying amen, they actually think that that's getting involved.
No, it's not.
It isn't. It isn't getting involved, and it's very, very important. And some people have called and stepped up and assisted us. We really, really, really need for people who have relatives who have children in the school district to call us. We really need to reach the parents directly. I have several concerns today, but that's more important for me, right, at this moment to tell you. Everybody listening has somebody that they're related to that have children in school. And it's very, very important because it's going to affect all of us as we continue to say. Whether you're a taxpayer or you're a neighbor of people that have children, it's affecting you whether you know it or not. When you go in the stores and a child or a young person who's out of high school, who's in their early 20s, can't count the change, it's affecting you. People's blood pressures get up, get raised, and all kinds of things are happening on the mental, physical level. So it's affecting us whether we realize it or not. So it's important that everybody get involved. I would like to ask, and this is really important to me, that people go online. I want you to do one thing for me, and that's pull up those that go on the computer. Go online and look up Dr. William Height in Prince George County. Go online and look up Karen Lynch in Prince George County. In Philadelphia, Karen Lynch is in charge of student support, I believe, services. Go online and see what you can find out about the two of them in Prince George County. That's very important. That this is not about us. This is about all of we who are affected. Go online. You need to know who the leaders are. We'll give you other names later to look up yourself. But go online and look up their names and see what issues they had in Prince George County. Please.
Yeah, it would be a great starting point for people to go online, because you can track online awareness and clicks and things of that nature. Like, it'd be interesting to see all of a sudden if 100 or 1,000 Black people started researching who the actual members of the school board are, because I bet you most of us don't know who the members of the administration are, who's overseeing for the last 7-8 years the 0% achievement level. Who are the real players here? Who has the no bid and the big contracts in the millions of dollars to monitor truancy or to clean up the schools? Like, the fact that we aren't even aware of the dynamics of the system, and yet we'll complain about what our children know or don't know. We'll talk about how bad or good they are, but we as a community have not put forward any sense that we love them enough to even know about the hellholes that they have to go into on a regular basis, either virtually or in real life, in order to come to their defense and to offer protection of them. And I just think that Black Philadelphia needs to get off of his hands and his other hind parts as we watch our neighborhoods fall apart in front of us and watch our children be sacrificed right in front of us. And all we could do is listen in and say, yeah, you're right, or yeah, you're wrong, or they're bad, or they're good. I mean, at some point, the onus is on us to stand up and deliver on behalf of our people. So I just wanted to say that. And again, if you have some thoughts about what groups are doing that, 215-634-8065, because maybe I'm overlooking them. Maybe we didn't see them. 215-634-8065, or you could type it in on our Facebook Live WURD radio comment section. If you type them in, I'll read them for the record. But again, we're coming up on a commercial break. When we come back, Mama Miguel, I want to hear from you about No More 0% and just some of the things that you think our listening audience needs to be made aware of as we continue to push forward. If you want to join or you want information, go to nomore0%@gmail.com. Again, that's no more, the number 0, the word %@gmail.com. You can also weigh in at notjustparents@gmail.com. You can weigh in on our website. And Mama Miguel, can you give the phone numbers that you would want people to reach out to you at, if they have some insight, some information, or some desire to act?
267-882-5885. 267-379-6184. 267-379-6184. That's my number exactly.
Exactly. That's a direct number. I know it for sure, and she'll get back to you. So again, the challenge has been laid. The gauntlet's been laid because we're in crunch time, y'all. This is crunch time on behalf of the future of our children, the future of our people in the city of Philadelphia. So again, this is Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. We have a conversation about No More 0% every Friday in the 3 o'clock hour to try to create a movement and to push our people to become active and proactive on behalf of the educational future and to stop the educational genocide and the educational slaughter of Black children in the public education system of our city, or should I call it the public de-education system. Coming up on the commercial break, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. No More 0%. Stay tuned.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about Black. Talk Media.
The pandemic is not only putting everyone's health at risk, it's also impacted our jobs and retirement security. And it's disproportionately affecting African Americans, especially those 50 plus. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. If you haven't voted yet, now is the time to learn about your voting options and cast your ballot. We're working to make sure you can vote safely, whether you choose to vote from home or in person. And if you choose to vote by mail, make sure you return your ballot using both envelopes. Your ballot goes in the smaller envelope for secrecy, and that goes into the larger envelope for mailing. Also, don't forget to sign the voter declaration on the back. Your voice matters. Make sure it's heard. Go to aarp.org/PA votes to learn about your voting options and how to vote safely this election. Visit aarp.org/PA votes today. Paid for by AARP.
Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. Millions of jobs gone, while those at the top taken more than ever. Our worst impulses unleashed, and our democratic institutions threatened like never before.
We need a leader ready for the job. Joe Biden. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it.
Paid for by Ask Me People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AskMePeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Smith Play John is a new kids TV show produced by Smith Memorial Playground. Tune in Wednesdays at 3 p.m. on Comcast, Verizon, or PhillyCam.org for at-home play breaks, music time, story time, and to share your John. Details at smithplayground.org.
Hey, Word family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Everyone has a different journey to their vote, but we all take the same steps. If you want to vote, register by October 19th. If you want to vote by mail, apply now and mail your ballot back as early as possible, before November 3rd. Or bring it to a satellite election office. If you want to vote in person, go to your polling location on November 3rd. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way. Visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com.
I ain't no better than you, and you ain't no better than me. But we all have something in common. We all are species, seeds of God's creation.
Tune in to Messages in the Music every Friday night with Joey T, midnight to 6 a.m. right here on WURD.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings, Evolution, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. Man, you have no idea how close up this camera is until you see it on Facebook Live and like, wow, I got to start moving back a little bit. That's too much information going on all up in my face like that. So this is our weekly segment we call No More 0% with I call it Hanging with the Cowtons, Mama Gail and Barbara Horace. And you hear how serious they are on the phone, man. But if you all are around them as we're having these meetings offline, they also should have their own stand-up comedy reality TV show to go along with this work. But we got to do something to keep our spirits up, man, because I feel like our children need to see us fight for them instead of fighting against them all the time. And they need to see us be bold for them instead of blaming them. And I think that this issue around 0% and just the education or de-education, the systematic preparation of them for irrelevance in this economic, social, political reality is something that if this doesn't get us in a stand, get up, stand up position, then I don't know what else will. So with that being said, Mama Gail, I hand it off to you. What are some of the reflections that you've been going through that you want our listening audience to be aware of?
One of the things that I constantly talk about is language. And you know how I am about the fighting thing. I was just thinking, Mother Teresa said to someone that asked her to walk against violence, and she said, if you walk for peace, I'll walk with you. And one of the things I constantly say, peace and love, peace, peace, peace. And I realize what we say goes out in the universe, and it's amplified, and it comes back to us. And so even as people are saying we're not working together, my thing is find people that are working together, find people that you can work with. I'm looking for people that we can work with. I ain't fighting, I ain't struggling, I never battle. I stand for our children, I walk for our children, I pray for our children, and I get things done. I'm looking for people like Brother Shamari and the others that are on the same page with us, because we have got to gather for peace for these children. My thing is protecting them. I have stood for a long time, sat for a long time in front of these people and the people before them and the people before them, sat in front of Dr. Clayton, and I've been protecting, as I said before, those that don't speak for themselves, those that can't speak for themselves, and those that won't speak for themselves. We have got to protect our children, and we have got to get it in our heads that we are the ones. We can't keep blaming other people, and we can't keep making excuses why we're not doing what we're supposed to do. These children need to see us. Many of them only see white faces in front of them on a daily basis when they're in school. And that's sad. They might get a black substitute, but many of them do not have black faces on the regular in front of them in class. And so that's important to understand that we have got to make our presence known. When we were walking in the streets, I was asking people going down the street to honk for our children. Our children, when you see them out on the streets and they're with their bicycles or their skateboarding, you might see 100 of them. They're organizing, and they don't have structure, so they're all over the street, sometimes going in the opposite direction. They need us to lead them and lead them properly. I'm looking for leaders. You can follow me if you want, but I'm looking for people to lead children out of this foolishness. We have children on a high school level, family, that are reading on 3rd and 4th grade level. I just spoke to a principal yesterday. I spoke to a person that was a principal and is retired today, and we were having a conversation because I have to ask people, how you feel about what I'm saying? And more than you would believe, they're in agreement. White, black, and other, they're in agreement. We have got to do something different. And I'm saying the specific things that I talked to them about, they're in agreement. Our children should not be failing like this. And part of why they're failing is administration. And you need to understand that. The administration has failed us. The people that they brought in to work under them, many of them that were good left. The ones that have failed, many of them are still around. And I'm telling you, you can talk about COVID all day long. The failure came long before COVID. My biggest concern is our children who are considered special education, who are supposed to get IEPs, individual education plans, on a daily, on a month, on a yearly basis. They should get a new one. Before COVID hit, I went to a school and I sat with a parent whose child had not had an IEP in 4 years. The principal I was with has been there for 3 years. She told me she has 30 children that need an IEP and hadn't had one in 3 years. This ain't her fault. This is the administration above her. That's their fault. We have been cheated, family. And I think that if we got together and we started polling parents who have children in schools who are supposed to have an IEP, you will find out that this would be a perfect class action lawsuit, because these people have not done what they were supposed to do. And guess what? When you talk to a parent who is afraid to go up to school because she's afraid she will get locked up because she's been asking for help for 4 years, and she's saying to me, my fifth grader writes like he's in first grade, and he didn't know the month of the year. I spoke to a parent the other day, and she said my 18-year-old didn't know the word chaos and didn't know how to spell letters, Lettcuce, did not know how to spell the word letters. We have got to get involved like we've never gotten involved before, and you call me and I'll tell you how. My number again is 267-379-6184. The younger people need older people to guide them.
Can you get that number one more time, Mama Gail?
267-379-6184.
I wanted, and again, reminding people, no more 0% Gmail at gmail.com. The way to reach out is very clear. If you're serious, the phone number, the email address, the website, the carrier pigeon, the smoke signal, whatever you need to send up, it will be received, because it is time for us to get serious. I want to go back earlier, Baba Harris and Mama Gail, you all mentioned some homework, and you talked about giving the names of some people that you wanted people to research. Can we go down that? I mean, fundamentally for me, I believe that people need to know who the administrative hierarchy is that's governing the school district right now, and they also need to know who the players are at the level of the school board that's overseeing school district operations. So how would people go about, if you were given a homework assignment, let's go to school on this one. If you were given a homework assignment, what homework assignment, as far as knowing who the players are, would you assign to the listening audience right now that they should complete to show that they're serious about even addressing this issue at some level? What's our kindergarten homework assignment?
The assignment that I would give is threefold. One, research Dr. William Height and Prince George County Schools.
Spell Dr. Height's name, because I'm not being facetious. I think that most people, if you're not attached to this issue, you might think it's Height, the way you normally spell Height. So spell his name for the record so people get the right height.
H as in Harry, I as in Isaac, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, H-I-T-E.
Okay, that was number one.
Okay, Karen Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H. Her first name is not spelled the way we would spell it, I don't believe. It's Karen, but it's not K-A-R-E, I don't think, but it's L-Y-N-C-H, and I apologize for not being able to spell it correctly, but her last name is Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H.
Do you know her title in the district?
Yeah, she's the Director of Student Support Services.
Great. All right. Any other players?
The last would be the members of the school board. Excuse me, the members of the Board of Education.
I'm going to put you all on the spot and ask right now if you are in a position to name them. so that people, I mean, it should be easy to look them up, but if you had their names available, I think that would be beneficial.
No, I say look them up.
Spoken like somebody who's tired of doing all the work.
That's right. And what's interesting about them is that we have people that have to, what is the word? Recluse themselves. Right. Recluse themselves from voting because of their interest in whatever's going on. And sometimes you wonder, you might not be able to vote, but how did you maybe affect the vote? Even though you can't vote, how did you affect the vote based on your connection with these companies? One of the things
usually if you have to recuse yourself in any business setting that I've been in, that means you had your hands in bringing it to the point of it being even a vote. So you usually are recusing because you've initiated or have some deep involvement with the actual business side of the connection. And so in the name of quote unquote propriety, you want to recuse yourself, but you've already done your work by getting it to the point of it even being voted upon.
Right. Thank you for that. The other thing that I want to look into later, because I used to have meetings at 440 in the meeting space. I've even had a meeting up in the boardroom. That's the kind of connections that we have with the district. And what I want people to know is that when it comes to procurement, that's really, really deep, because what I did working with a prior person that was in charge of procurement, we used to hold meetings for our community to come and find out what contracts were available. And so my role, and I took it upon myself, no one paid me to do this, but I wanted our community to know that here were opportunities for them as business people to come and get contracts. And it happened. People got contracts and people also got jobs that they wouldn't have known about. We don't have that kind of access anymore that we had, and it's important that the community know that it's important that they get involved. If you know people that have services that can be welcomed by the district because they need the products that you're selling or the services you can provide, you need to know. There's a thing that I wanted to talk about. I heard somebody talking about the sanitary things, right? So prior to all of this, I used to be at Huey School, and in the basement, and I know that I heard it was other schools as well, but what they would do is store things that they would no longer using in the basement at Huey School. It was interesting to me because some things had never even been open. Like they had brand new TVs down there, the big old giant TVs, still in boxes, had never been open. So it was like when they were cleaning out other schools, they must have bought the things over there. Well, one of the things that was there was the stuff where you use to clean your hands, the sanitary stuff. It was interesting because they were brand new and they were just sitting there. And what happens is they would get a contract with a different company, right? And so those were no longer useful to them. But it was nothing wrong with them. And so what I'm saying is I found so much waste in the district, that it was unbelievable. So when Dr. Hite came here, and I remember reading in Prince George County, one of the things that I read was about him always needing or asking for money, and that's the way I interpret it. From we need more money, It was interesting to me because it sounds to me the same way he must have been saying in Prince George County. What I'm saying here, I can't talk about Prince George County other than to say, here I saw a lot of waste. I've seen year after year, contract after contract, we have new books here. Let's use them when they go back to school.
It's planned obsolescence. I mean, it's part of the capitalistic way. I want to read a comment, again, because I put the question out there. I haven't, and for the record, I haven't seen anybody respond with the name of Black organization or a Black group of people who are on the front lines regarding this issue. So here's a call to you all. Get on the front lines. You don't have to join this, but there needs to be other formations of people who have said that this is important enough to do something about. Reading from Forrest Dixon, when there are increases in the expenditure of our tax dollars for education, it is more about teacher and administrator salaries than it is about Black student achievement. There should be a direct correlation to education expenditures and Black student achievement. That's something we should be able to tie any increases in their budget to visible increases in their ability to achieve at that level. The comment is much longer, but I thought that was a good paragraph to read. I wanted to say one more thing about recusal, and then Mama Gail, I'm going to ask you to offer up the phone number and contact information one more time before we sign off. But the other thing about recusal, and I've seen it happen and people will deny it, is that, you can be the architect of a deal, but because you have a conflict of interest or you want to protect some interest, you can recuse yourself from the vote. And you usually do that when you're pretty sure the vote is going to pass and go the way you want it to go. So you can, but what that does, it now allows you later on, let's say when you step off the board or you retire and you want to go back and now work for or get a consultant contract with the company whose deal you helped secure, you can now cover yourself because the record will show that you didn't vote for that company to get the contract. So now there's no ostensible conflict of interest by you now receiving consulting money or a job position, because you can say, quote unquote, your hands were clean in the awarding of the contract to the company. So all of this is one big con game. And again, it's $3 billion worth of conning that happens every year. And every year with that $3 billion, our children get less and less education. If you're okay with that, continue to stand on the sidelines. But your children and our people are going to pay a heck of a price with the continued destabilization and de-education of their minds. It's up to us to be on the front lines of taking the Black mind back and educating the Black mind. So again, Mama Gail, if people want to connect with you and connect with No More 0% or connect with not just parents, how do they do that?
Let me say something real quick. $22 million, there's a contract or RSP for $22 million for next week for instructional material. So I need y'all to really listen to what's going on. We just had a lot of stuff, a contract not long ago, I believe, for instructional material, probably a year ago. So my number is 267-379-6184, 267-379-6184. Real quick, Brother Shamari, a big concern is if our children go back into school. We know that they need to be protected, and I said that. However, with all these people throughout the country who people call Karens and whatever the other names are, we cannot afford to let our children go in these buildings and not be protected. So, again, my number is 267-379-6184.
And again, that's also No More 0%. The word no, the word more, the number 0, the word percent at gmail.com or notjustparents@gmail.com. Coming up on a commercial break. When we come back, we'll hear from our brother Mwalimu Waset with an update on where our next Spirit of the Drum session will be in the city of Philadelphia. So stay tuned.
JD's Auto Body and Painting is hiring talent for the following positions: assembler, preferably 2 to 3 years experience, able to tear down and reassemble all make and model cars. Painter, must have at least 5 years overall painting experience, including experience in water-based paint and able to prep cars for paint jobs. Auto Body Technician, looking for an A or B technician, must have at least 5 years experience repairing cars. Please send your resume to JD's Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net. That's JDS Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net, or call 215-848-5949 for more details. JD's Auto Body and Painting is an equal opportunity employer.
The time is now to put an end to the chronic incompetence of Donald Trump and his League of Liars. Donald Trump makes a mockery of the institution of the presidency. He's polarized our country, and his dangerous policies must not continue. Joe Biden has the character, empathy, and experience to lead us through these challenging times. He helped lead the nation out of the 2008 financial crisis into the longest period of economic growth in our history, and he can do it again. As president, he will heal divisions and unite us around the shared values of justice. He'll create opportunities for quality education and good-paying jobs, and he'll build on the Affordable Care Act, not tear it down. While Donald Trump thinks coronavirus and climate change are a hoax, Joe Biden already has a coronavirus recovery plan and a strategy to create more jobs while also tackling the climate crisis. Vote for a president who will stand on the right side of history. Vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by Black PAC and Priorities USA Action, blackpac.com and prioritiesusaAction.org, which are responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear. This election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We'll protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body. Root out systemic racism in our justice system, and pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
And welcome back to the final segment of Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. Again, we had the privilege of having a conversation about Domestic Violence Awareness Month and moving beyond awareness to intervention and prevention. We had a chance to talk with Mama Gail and Baba Horace Clouden about No More 0%, not just parents, and the need to prevent and stop the educational slaughter of Black children. And we're going to close out our show today with Brother Mwalimu Wasset giving us an update regarding Spirit of the Drum. Both, I'd be interested to hear about the Black Panther mural unveiling and then also where we're going to be on Sunday. But for the record, Karen Lynch, K-A-R-Y-N is the first name, Karen Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H. We were able to get that correct spelling, so thank you, listening audience, for weighing in on that. Again, that's K-A-R-Y-N, last name Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H. Brother Wasset, greetings. How are you?
Hey, Brother Shamari. I should say, how are you? I heard you early on this morning. I'm
doing double duty today, man. You know,
I'm like, is he gonna make it to the?
I'm making it, man. I got one more. I got a Zoom call to do later on tonight as well, and then I get to sleep for the weekend. Until Sunday.
You the man, bro. You the man.
I try, you know, it's not wrong with trying to be that.
Absolutely.
Well, tell me a little bit about the Black Panther Party unveiling. It's funny, when I first heard the Black Panther mural, I thought they meant in honor of the movie, and it was right after Chadwick Boseman had passed away. But then I found out later it was actually a mural for the Black Panther Party, and I know you all had the privilege of drumming there. So give us a little insight about that.
Yeah, so, you know, I have to say that it was really powerful. You know, I had to give, you know, kudos to Tommy Joshua, who is doing amazing work over there. And one of the things that I like about what they're doing is they're constantly building, but not just building, but they're expanding. So on one of the buildings that they are actually working on rehabbing, they did a Black Panther Party mural. And what was so powerful about the mural is that you know, the connection that he made was a connection in honor of all of the work that the Black Panther Party, not only what they did, you know, but what the work that we're continuing to do. And he made reference to the political prisoners, you know, some of, Jalil Muttaqin, who just got out of prison after doing 49 years, you know, so it was just beautiful to hear him express that. You know, this is basically a dedication to our ancestors, you know, to make sure that not only do we forget those ancestors, particularly those members of the Black Panther Party who made sacrifices, but that we also continue this work, that this mural is about them, and it symbolizes the work that we continue to do each and every day. And so I just love that. You know, like I said, it was a nice crowd out there. I love the fact that how we're all putting the pieces together. Right. And one of the things that me and Tommy talked about afterwards is that how we need to make sure that we're not all on these separate islands and everybody is doing this different work, because the work is all connected. And what usually happens is that if I stay on my separate island, when I sink by myself. But if I'm able to link those islands together, then when I see my brother or sister's organization sinking, I can reach out and I can help them. So powerful dialogue. It was definitely a powerful moment yesterday. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to drum there.
Real quick on that, let people know where that is, because the mural is still there. If you want to go by and see it and check it out, let people know where that location is.
Oh, absolutely. So that's North Philly Peace Park. That's at 22nd and Jefferson Streets right there in North Philadelphia. And it has some beautiful symbolism, so you had the Black Panther, you got the Black Fist, you have the Sankofa bird, you have Jinyame. So all of these beautiful symbols, and they
now this was a Black people's mural. This wasn't necessarily a City of Philadelphia arts mural. Like Black people realized that they could paint their own stuff and actually painted the wall, or was this a mural arts mural?
Oh no! This was our stuff.
We didn't have to wait for permission to paint our own wall.
This wasn't the city councilman or the mayor doing photo ops and the news camera. No, this was literally a community event. And I think that's what makes it even more powerful, that this was necessarily about us. We weren't really concerned about the photo ops and people coming in and giving you a pat on the back. This is basically about, self-determination.
Yeah, because I don't think they would have signed off on that mural. Sometimes you got to do your own thing and tell your own story. So my brother, real quick, Sunday, Spirit of the Drum still going strong. It's going to be a little chilly. I'm going to have my jacket on this one, I know. But where are we going to be on Sunday?
Yeah, so we're going to be at Malcolm X Park. And the weather actually is supposed to be pretty nice, a little bit nicer than last Sunday. But listen, brother, we braved the storm.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful, man. I was a little nervous on the front end, but it ended up being, again, every time somehow it ciphers on its own terms in a very beautiful way that I'm just privileged to be a part of.
Yeah, the ancestors and Mother Nature co-conspire together to make sure that whatever weather we need to make it happen, it happens. And we do have communication about a possible indoor venue. So I'll speak to you about that, later this week. So like I said, we're moving and grooving, and things are, steadily moving. A lot of inquiries. Everybody wants to know what's going on with the Spirit of the Drum, and I think they like that energy. We're going to continue to work to preserve that space.
Great. You didn't tell us where we're going to be, though.
Oh. Oh, my apologies. We're going to be at Malcolm X Park. And that's always going to be a central space for us. The whole ideal of Malcolm X Park. We always have to be up in that energy. So we're never going to stray away from Malcolm X Park, because that's the space that, in my opinion, and I think that we talked about that is kind of under siege. Yes. And so we have to do what is necessary to reclaim it. And I think part of our presence being there basically is a way that we reclaim Malcolm X Park and make sure that it is what was intended to be.
That's right, because every now and then we gotta go back and chase out some other spirits that have descended in that spot and trying to change the whole energy and purpose of it. So I'm glad. I consider Malcolm X Park home as one of the first activities I participated in back in the early 90s, along with Deacon Dell and Know Thyself Bookstore, to change that from Black Oak Park to Malcolm X Park. So I see that as something that's always going to be on the top line, fight and battleground and standing ground for me, to make sure that the spirit of that park stays as it was intended to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're trying to re-gentrify the park in more ways than one, but we are not going to allow that to happen. So, yep, definitely appreciate that alliance.
And for those of you who are new to Philadelphia or didn't grow up in Philly, or maybe just don't leave your neighborhood, Malcolm X Park is at 52nd and Pine Street in the West Philadelphia section of the city. So if you go to 52nd and Pine, you'll see a beautiful block-wide park. That's Malcolm X Park, and we hope to see you there Sunday at 1 o'clock. Otherwise said, as always, thank you for checking in with the Spirit of the Drum, and have a great day. I'll see you on Sunday.
Hey, you too, my brother. Get some rest.
I'm working on that, sir. This has been another episode of Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. I will talk with everybody on Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m. right here, WURD Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM on your radio dial, streaming live, www.WURDradio.com, also Facebook Live, WURD Radio. I will see you, talk to you, be with you on Sunday, 6 o'clock p.m. Stay tuned.
In Tulsa, Oklahoma, June 1st, 1921, throughout the streets of Greenwood, the killing had begun, and by the time the day was over, business, churches, schools, and more, Little Africa, our Black Wall Street, was completely destroyed. It was a time of lynching across the USA. Hateful greed in so many hearts resembled life today. We must remember, perhaps forgive, but don't forget. So we will not repeat the past mistakes that we'll regret. Sankofa, remember the past. Sankofa, learning from the past. Choctaw Creeks, Cherokees with African Americans settled here, forced into Tallahassee along the tragic trail of tears. Railroads brought new settlers, oil discovered in this place. African Americans began to prosper in this strong economic base. Profits earned stayed within this new community. Wealth was built, business grew, so did hate and jealousy. Many felt that this success was not for those whose skin was black. Made a plan to bring it down with a deadly attack. Sankofa, remember the past. Sankofa, learning from the past. So when young Dick Rowland was accused of assaulting Sarah Page, it was used as an opportunity for the terror they would wage. Greenwood bombed from the air, Little Africa burned to the ground. The residents of Black Wall Street were murdered and gunned down. Reports that thousands were killed, thousands displaced, so many injured while mass looting took place. Churches, schools, restaurants, libraries, grocery stores, the hospital, bank, and bus system, all of Greenwood destroyed.